This conference will now be recorded.
Ken, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, I was actually talking to the other Ken, but thank you for joining, Ken Johnson.
Oh, okay. Sorry
We have
about that.
Ken Sparrow on the line as well,
Yeah,
and he was preparing to give us an update on the VLST activities.
yeah. So I'm here as well. I was muted. So um, okay. So we are still very actively engaged in implementing ICAM for each of the there. When you break down VLab, it actually breaks down into 6 different components that are using ICAM, um, and we have it working within basically 4 of the 6. And then we're working through details. It's not been an easy transition, but we're making progress and I'm feeling better about it. So of the applications, we have Jenkins working, we have VLCS just started working, and these are all within our development tier. None of them other than the object storage area of VLab, which is basically just an Apache controlled directory. That's the only one that's actually been rolled out to production. But within our dev tier, we have VLCS, which is LifeRay, and then Jenkins. Redmine is underway, and then Garrett also is working on our tier. We're working through some of the details because we are supporting not only ICAM, which uses SAML, but we also have to support for our external partners a more traditional authentication scheme. And then lastly, we don't want to drop capabilities, and so we're still keeping the Google single sign-on in place as well. So that introduces some challenges from the software perspective, but I think it's important that we keep those and not require everyone to start using pins if they're already using the Google authentication. So anyway, that's where most of our energies have been focused. Although I have had one of our more senior staff or engineer working through things. So he's been actively working and there are some changes that have been rolled out over the last month or so. Specifically, there are some things dealing with DDLs, the dynamic data lists of forms that I believe went through the VIT. The ability exists now to be able to actually, it's going to be rolled out tonight, and that is there was a request by Daniel Melendez that went through the VIT where they wanted to be able to have the ability when you submit an entry through a form within VLab that the submitter could basically delete the request. And so that capability has been tested, developed, and it will be rolled out tonight. So that's going to be there. The icon, it was suggested that the community icon be updated, and that's been rolled out. There were some patching done and security updates about 2 weeks ago that were a significant effort, and that's been all rolled out within VLCS. And so those are some of the things I'm trying to think. The upload, download capability for documents, that's been simplified. And then I think we already covered the last time at the title and underlined to the navigation portlet links. That's been rolled out as well. So not as much as I'd hope, but it's because most of our energy is focused on this NOAA Enterprise solution for a single sign-on. So that's kind of an update on where things stand. Are there any questions for me? Okay, I'll mention two, and it was one of the action items I had, and it had to deal with communications within VLab, and this goes back to when Todd was, within the team, and so John did some work on this, and he downloaded like the latest 2,000 people. It was basically people that had logged into VLab over the last 3 months. So what we've done is we're using a script or a query to get the latest people that have accessed VLab, and then we'll update the info list with those users. So yesterday I was able to import all those users into the info list, and so when if there's an outage or if there's a reason to be able to communicate, we can use the info list as a means to reach people, and we'll know that we're reaching those that are at least as of the last update, we're accessing VLab. So that'll be better than what we've had before, because it was just over 200 people were registered to get those emails. And so, in fact, I probably should send an update to that list now, as we're IDP it was very stable for a while, but they're having some stability issues this morning with networking and DNS, and that's introduced some problems where, as you might have noticed, the VIT emails were sent directly by John, and that's because emails being sent from VLab currently aren't going out, and so we're seeing them sent from the mail logs on the servers, but nothing's happening after that. So it seems that IDP is having some issues, and so that's just for your own edification. The other thing I should mention is Steve Smith did have me come up with an estimate to host VLab within the cloud, all of it. So I've completed that exercise and passed that along to him. And so he'll be talking with management about the feasibility of procuring the funds to handle that. There's still the issue of like the MDS tool and AIR, which are more operation-like. And so the question then comes up as to whether or not we would potentially have two instances of VLCS, one for operation-like type workflows like the MDS tool, like AIR, other things like that, and then have a second one which would be hosted within the cloud. We're also, I've mentioned that the repositories that we store, I think we should still have a copy of those within IDP, but the main interactions with VLab would go through, would be hosted within the cloud. I find it a little bit ironic that I would suggest that, based on past experience, that the non-operational environment probably would be much more stable and have less issues, but that's beside the point. So, but for other reasons, I think we probably will have to keep at least certain components within IDP, assuming that there's funding and we get agreement to. So there's nothing official at this point, but we are planning things because the instability issues within IDP have continued to be an issue. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Ken, with the for the components that are moved to AWS, what FSMA boundary? I'm just curious. Would it
Sure.
still be in the IDP or NCEP FSMA boundary, or are you pulling that into your own?
It would likely be the latter.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, thanks, Ken. Appreciate the
Sure.
update.
Yep.
It sounds like there's some very interesting times ahead for VLab and particularly VLab in the cloud. So
yeah,
cool. Okay, that brings us to our effort to rank a number of endorsed tickets. And let me just quickly review what was on our plate to be ranked. There were 3 issues. The first one involved a request to have a longer forum subject line. So 75 characters seemed to be the threshold, and that seemed to be limiting. So it was asked to bump that up to something more reasonable. There was also a ticket to implement a VLab autosave. So, you may be familiar with this in applications like Word, where, as you type or whatever, you're typing, your inputs are being saved. And that way, if the computer goes down or whatever, there was a document that contained those last updates, even if you hadn't formally saved the document. So we're looking for something like that for the VLab. Then, as Ken mentioned, Daniel Melendez had asked for this ability to allow users to basically to update and delete their own DDL entries. So there currently is permissioning that allows someone to control who can delete and who can't delete an entry. But when implemented, the delete allows you to delete not only your own stuff, but anybody else's entries in that DDL. So this would further refine that to allow just you to delete, your entries. And as Ken mentioned, although we're still in the process of ranking it, they've moved along and are pretty much close to ready to implement that change. So that's good news. But anyway, so we've got impact scores of 8, 8, and 7 for those different issues respectively. And I've worked pretty tirelessly to get input from Alaska, Pacific region, and oh, good. I see Nesdis has provided us their input here in the last few minutes, so that's good. But anyway, so given that we do have a quorum's worth of input, I would advocate that we accept these impact scores and press ahead and let the VLST know that we have ranked them.
Agreed. Go for it.
All right, great. So if there's no other questions or comments on that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And that brings us to a quick discussion of the VIT chair and vice chair positions being open as of December. Todd?
Yeah, and on this one, as a reminder, we rotate this on a calendar year basis, so we basically look for a chair and vice chair to cover 2020. John has sent out a couple notification emails over the last month or two. We haven't gotten any nibbles yet, so I know it's only November, so we have another month or so, but please, it's definitely, I mean, just speaking as the current chair, it is not a big time commitment that you're being asked to make. It's, we only have 1 meeting a month now, and, the chair reviews the agenda with John in advance a little bit. It's not a heavy lift, and it helps out the VLab support team keep things moving forward. So definitely, please, if you have time, volunteer. Again, it's a year, so it'd be about 12 meetings you're covering for the year. Just let me know, and John, and hopefully we get some takers after this. If there's any questions, of course, contact me directly, and I'd be happy to answer them.
All righty, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that community service announcement. That was great. So the next item on the agenda involves our video hosting proposal that we as a team had come up with and are trying to push through the system. And normally the update would have been provided by Brian Beretsky, but he was unable to attend today's meeting. And that's pretty much due to the fact that he's leaving the team as he transitions to a new position here at headquarters, National Weather Service. Now, that said, he did commit to continuing to help push this proposal forward. And the latest news regarding that is Steve Smith, director of the virtual lab, has suggested that probably the best initial strategy for moving this forward is to actually get it into the National Weather Service's CARD system. It's a requirement system, and it allows anybody throughout the Weather Service to basically make a suggestion, so to speak, and then it gets worked up through the chain of command, ultimately at some point perhaps blessed and funded at the national level. So it's not exactly a fast process, but it seems like it's probably the best way to get this thing moving and ensure that it gets an airing that we so desperately want it to have. So I'm sure we can expect to hear more from Brian on that. He did say that perhaps around the 9th or so of December, which may be coincident with our next meeting, he'll give us another update. So I'll hope to arrange that for us. Any questions on our video hosting proposal? All righty. I believe that now brings us to the open forum, where you as a member are allowed to bring up any topics that you'd like to bring before the team. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say or topics to discuss?
So this is Ken. One thing I forgot to mention during my update was that we have moved forward too, and a fair amount of time went into, we're managing cloud resources within the VLab. So one of our senior engineers developed tools that are now available within VLab. This is in direct support of the AWIPS program within the National Weather Service. And they're actually fully engaged and using cloud resources through that's being managed by MDL. And so we developed tools that basically allow people that are on a list to go in and request cloud resources through a form, then approve them. And then once they've been approved, it actually creates a reference to the virtual machine that's running within the cloud. And it's then assigned to individuals. So people log in into VLab, Virtual Lab Collaboration Services, then have access to see cloud resources that they can access. They can actually then stop and start those instances through the tools within VLab. And then by doing it this way, it basically provides a very simplified view of being able to manage the resources, track it, ensure that on the back end, all the necessary tagging and things like that are being done so that we can track it, make sure things are being done correctly. So that's fully underway. And so people have started using within the field, within the National Weather Service, are starting to use these resources to migrate from to a particular AWIPS version, 20.01 or 21. I think it's 20.1. And there's an issue with they're migrating from Python 2 to Python 3, and the cloud resources are allowing them to transition where they didn't have an environment to do it otherwise on premise. So anyway, that's just more for the VITs, make sure that you guys are in the loop. And if desired, we could provide a demo of that perhaps at our next meeting, if that's something that people are interested in.
I actually was going to ask that, Ken. I'm just curious how, and I know you and I have talked about some of the governance over the last months, regarding cloud in general, but I am curious about how your request approval process logistically works. Just seeing that would be cool.
Yeah, so that's I'd be happy to do that. So.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for our open forum? All righty, then I believe that takes us to a very quick review of our open action items. The first one involves our video hosting proposal. We have one sort of to keep track of what's going on there, and I put a note here that this one is on hold until the 9th of September or December, when Brian hopefully will provide his next update to us. as an interested but non-member of the VIT. So we'll see how that goes. There was also a discussion or an open action item about this ticket that Ken discussed, 58002, which is that improved communications topic. So I think we can close that one out, Ken. Is that a done deal?
Yeah, I think we can close it out too. So
okay, wonderful. So we'll take care of that. And then there was another issue that I think we had indicated still needed to be discussed. And have you met with the respective parties on that?
I haven't met with them, but I have a pretty good understanding of what needs to be done and the reason that we were hesitant. I did some searching this morning, and it looks like there might be a more recent plugin available for Redmine for the recurring that's being actively worked. And so I'm going to take the action to, see if we can test that out in a dev instance and see if it is a better solution for what we're trying to do. So so I'm hopeful, but we'll have to flesh that out. So I think we can close that action item as well.
Okay.
Forward. So.
We'll go ahead and do that. I was thinking that might still need to remain open, but
yeah, no, I think it's fine. So it's just a matter of working through the process.
Okay. All righty. Very good. So then just a quick review of the open action item, the new action items generated by our meeting today. The first is I need to update the ranked issues and provide them with the latest scores that we have assigned them. Then we need to continue to look for a chair and vice chair to take over for our current leadership. Then schedule Ken for a demo of the cloud tools that are resident within the VLab and the process surrounding them. And then I will also close the two action items that Ken was involved with that as of today have been closed. Any other changes or updates that I need to take into account?
I think you got it.
All right. With that, I'll turn it back over to Todd to wrap up our meeting.
All right. I didn't have anything else to add. Thank you, everyone. And we will see each other about 1 month from now.
Okie dokie. Have a good day, everyone.